Student Government Association presidential and vice presidential debate. We do have representatives from both tickets on hand. We've got Mike Eagles, who's the current speaker of the Student Senate. He's a candidate for president, and his vice president's candidate will be here shortly. Ms. Chloe Hanson-Miller. Chloe Miller-Hanson. We also have Brian is the
vice president for Hiba.
And Hiba Muhammad is also going to be getting here as soon as she can. So she is the candidate for president on the other ticket. So we're going to have the structure of the debate is we're going to have each ticket give a 5-minute introduction to themselves and their platform. And then we're going to ask a couple of questions from us and give them each 3 minutes to respond. And then at the end, we'll collect your guys' questions and then ask those. And so thank you for attending, and that's how it's going to go.
All right. Well, as Paul said, my name is Michael Engels, and I'm running for president of the Student Government Association. I'll just give you a brief background of myself. I'm presently the Speaker of the Senate, and I have been for almost a year now. Pretty much shortly after I joined SGA. I am a transfer student for the UW Fox Valley in Menasha. I am a non-traditional student. I am a poli-sci major with minors in theater and political studies. I'm in the last year as speaker. I've tried to do my best to make SGA a more visible organization on campus, more respected, more regular in the way we do things, and I think that we've done a pretty good job with that. And so when it got to the point where I had to decide, and I had to start thinking about next year, whether I wanted to stick with SGA or not, I started thinking about positions that I would be interested in. The reason I decided to run for president was really I felt that I would be, as president, I would be in a better position to basically keep things going in a positive direction, but also come at things from a different way, whereas Speaker of the Senate is really a behind-the-scenes role. It's more of a cheerleader for the organization, representing the senators to the executive, that kind of thing. The president is really more about representing the students to the campus administration, and representing the student body. And some of the things that I've been working on over the past year, one of the things in particular that I have spent a lot of time working on, and Eva has also spent a lot of time working on, is our effort to get a child care facility on campus. And in that effort, I've come to realize that this is an area where we need to be, as students, we need to be assertive and upfront about what we're asking for. We need to make sure that we're following through on the things that we're looking for. And also during the process, just basically of running the school, we need to make sure that the students are being consulted early and often when decisions are being made. Our platform really boils down to communication. We feel that there's a gap in communication. There are examples where we as the Student Government Association find out about things when they're pretty much decided, and I consider that unacceptable. I also consider it unacceptable that as I've been campaigning, people have been telling me that they've never really heard from their student government before. And I think in the last year, we've made a tremendous effort to change that. We've been a lot more visible, I think, than we were the year before. But clearly, there's a lot more that needs to be done. There's more that we can do. And as president, there's more that I'd like to do to make sure that we are out there reaching the students. Part of our campaign has been attempting to model the way we would like to govern. So we've been experimenting with different ways of communication, including attending student organization meetings, doing more things electronically on Twitter, Facebook, or whatever. These are all ideas that have been kicked around SGA before, not necessarily been implemented. I know I had discussions right after I became speaker about trying to come up with a way to network student organizations, like person to person. That never went anywhere. And as president, I'd be in a position to focus on those areas. The other thing is, as president, a lot of that is just making sure that you're picking the right people and identifying the right people, and I feel that as a leader, I've done a good job of identifying future leaders, some of whom are in this room, and trying to push them into a role where they can contribute, whether that's a formal position or whether it's just pursuing something. An example of pursuing something, actually, going back to the childcare issue. The student who began that effort is not a member of SGA and is still not a member of SGA, but I have worked with her and worked with her to bring together students from other organizations and other individuals over the past year to pursue something that she's passionate about. And I think that that's something that SGA should encourage. You don't have to join the organization to, as a student, exercise your voice and pursue the things that you're passionate about. And so Chloe and I would like to see more communication along the modes that I've described, and maybe not all of these experiments will work out, some will work out better than others, but we're making the effort to be more visible, more active, and then when it comes to representing the students, being more assertive, so that we're not the last ones to point out. Thank you.
Okay, it's really an honor to be running with you before this. In fact, I probably wouldn't have gone with any other candidate. She really is a great student leader. This year, she serves as the chair of the Equality and Diversity Committee on SGA. With that, she is the liaison between the Senate and multicultural organizations. In fact, she is the head of a Muslim organization on campus, and that is the reason why she couldn't attend tonight. She has also served on the Faculty Senate and University Committee as an SGA liaison. With that, she has very close ties to the administration and the faculty, and she's very familiar with how faculty legislation works, and she is very familiar with the hierarchy of the faculty and the administration, who she has to go through to get things done, and who she has to be a thorn in their butts. She has also been part of the Diversity Task Force Committee and the LGBT Resource Committee, and which the second one is still quite active and going. She has won the Woman of Color and Education Award, and she was nominated for a Student Leadership Award this year. Whether or not she wins, that is yet to be declared. I actually hate podiums, so. I myself, my involvement with government began when I was nominated to be a Badger Boys state delegate my junior year. After getting back, my FBLA advisor actually asked me to be the chair of the FBLA Parliamentary Procedures team. And with that, there was a lot of studying, and many people thought I didn't have a life because I read the entire Robert's Rules of Order and created study guides. But through all of the effort that I put through, I led my team to states, and at states, we took first, in which we went to FBLA Nationals and competed, and I got the highest score out of over 50 students competing on the same exam. In fact, the sad thing about it is, if I had been a junior, I would be the FBLA state parliamentarian this year. So it's a little bit of an ironic twist. Going on to that, the reason why I do want to seek out student government is because, well, I don't want my studies to go to waste. That was a lot of time, I'm not going to lie. And also, I like to critique things. I tend to be a little OCD with stuff, and I like to find ways, pinpoint them, and improve them. And I'm sure that HELA is the same way. Right now, our platform would be increasing student involvement, willing student involvement. Not just people that are sitting there to improve their resume, but people who are concerned with what's happening on campus. Another issue that she has brought forward is maintaining our image as equal you and expanding upon our diversity characteristics, because we need to get our name in these tough times where we fear that enrollment is going down. We have to get our name. We have to be a little more competitive and a little more out there as an accepting campus, as a campus that is with what is new, what is everyone else's concern who is graduating from high school right now. So that our platform is, expanding the Senate and trying to expand Green Bay as a campus that people want to go to.
So our first question is we'll go with you, Brian.
Okay.
If you got your extras. So what is your stance on the United Council referendums and so on?
My stance is that right now with the state situation and how the universities are sort of separating themselves, I tend to be frustrated when looking at things because I look at both ways. One way, the UW system is a very proud system that we should try to preserve, and being part of the UC is a way of trying to stay connected, still be part of the great system that we're known. In fact, when I was at Clifford, that was one thing that Wisconsin could proudly be known for, was that we have a great college system. But on the other hand, I don't see a reason why we should be giving money to Madison when they do charge so much, and as we do become a little more privatized than what the UW system has been in the past, I think we could take on our individual responsibilities as far as funding organizations. There's better ways to use that money or just return it to the students.
Sure. Well, first of all, I can say that I authored the resolution to call for a referendum this year to get us out of the UC. I believe we should leave the UC. Just a bit of personal background. I said I was from UW Fox. From 2003 to 2004, to show my age, I was the vice president of the Student Association at UW Fox, and at that time, I traveled to 5 or 6 different United Council events. And at that time, for me, it was a great networking opportunity. There were a lot more students involved back then. They have since restructured that organization so that it's run by a board of directors, and each school brings far fewer people than they used to back then. It really, once you eliminate that networking component, it really comes back to what exactly are they doing for us for the money that we send them. If we're just paying them to be lobbyists, can't we lobby on our own behalf? Don't our state representatives live in the area and we can just go track them down? We don't need to pay somebody in Madison or establish a new office in Stevens Point with our money when we could be doing a better job of representing our own students. So I believe that we should leave United Council.
How do you plan to enact the child care facilities?
I know that the child care facility is a major part on Kiva's agenda, and that her main goal is just persistence, to keep after the provost, to keep after the chancellor, to make sure that this stays, whether she has to create more surveys or get more inputs, her main goal is just persistence and making sure that the administration does not let this slip under the rug, because this is the bandwagon, so-called. The new students that we need to be targeting are the parents who have lost their jobs during the recession and are looking for a new way to start their life. And for Green Bay to be known as a great place to raise a family, and yet its campus doesn't have a child care facility, it's kind of insulting to the name that our city has. So, like I said, it's just going to be a lot of persistence, keeping up with the administration and making sure that they keep it on their priorities too.
How do you plan to enact the child care facilities?
Okay, at this point, I'm not sure if anyone wants to see another survey from me. I think maybe we've played that out. Eva and I co-wrote 2 surveys already on this issue. We also hosted a fairly successful open forum. So at this point, we're at that phase where it's more of a follow through. I agree with Eva that there would be persistence. The Enhanced administration certainly would not be dropping it in any sense of the word. But continuing to work with those partners outside of SGA that I spoke of, all those other organizations, all those other students, and also with the faculty, we've established some good relationships with different faculty members that also care about this issue. I participated along with Eva last week in a meeting on this topic with the Chancellor and Provost, and so we're sort of at that phase now where the next step is basically the chancellor is considering the possibility of a consultant that could look into more hard facts. We've almost reached the limit of what we can collect as students as far as information. And we've collected information from the students. We've contacted other schools to see how their facilities run. We've done as much work. And if I can say also that a lot of that work I was happy to delegate and share. There's some great people in SGA that have really come through with helping to track down that information. And so people that have stepped up, beyond their formal position. And that's something that obviously, when I talked earlier about what's part of my philosophy of leadership is identifying future leaders, identifying the people that are willing to step up and do that kind of thing, and pushing them to pursue it, either in the things that they care about, or in this case, on a topic that most people that I've spoken with pretty much reached the consensus that it's so obvious that it's something that's needed that a lot of people don't even understand why we're still talking about it. It's just providing the information that will convince the people that need to be convinced and people that have the money and the resources. It's obviously going to be a long-term goal, because anytime you start talking about money, there's a lot of it to go around, and there's always going to be a conflict over it. So if it comes down to money, we'll do our best to make the case, that it's worth the money that it would cost. But as far as making the case that it's something that should happen, I have been intimately involved in the last year in making that case. And if anyone remains unconvinced, I would be happy to continue to make the case that it's something that's needed. At this point, it's just identifying the model that would actually be successful and work. And that's what we would do.
How do you plan to make the SGA more prominent again?
Okay, make it more prominent. Well, by taking on these bigger issues, these issues that are newsworthy, like childcare or whatever issues next year decides are by showing that we're doing something. We're not just a club of people that hang out and talk about politics or whatever. We actually take action. We go out. We talk to people. Like I said, Chloe and I have been making the rounds of student organizations. We really feel that that's a great place to identify student leaders, because the people that join, even if it's a recreational organization, they're still showing a commitment to their campus, and we want to encourage that. Reaching out to other students by whatever means, whether it's electronic, whether it's doing more tabling, or just going out and asking people a survey, not an email survey, but just going up to someone and saying, what do you think about this issue? Whether we have to start tabling, whatever it takes to get the name out there to be more visible. I think in the last year, since I've joined, we've already made strides in that effort in the Senate, and to make the organization as a whole more prominent, we just have to keep at that, keep doing what works basically, but then try out these new things that maybe we haven't had the time to try out before. And if a new administration comes in and has the time to come up with a plan between now and the end of this year of how we're going to do these things next year, and go in so we hit the ground running basically, and just get our name out there, and so that people know that we're your student government, and you should come to us if you want to, and we should be going to you too. We should be actively soliciting. We shouldn't just wait for people to come to us. An example is when I heard secondhand that Sarah Eggers was circulating this petition on childcare, and I went and I sought her out and I said, I think this is a good idea, let's talk about it. And so we did, and it became eventually an SGA campaign, something that most people in this room have in some capacity worked on, and many people outside of SGA as well. And it's not just an SGA campaign, but it's something that has sort of defined our organization over the past year, something that shows that we're active and we're committed to improving this campus.
Make it more prominent. With Eva and I trying to make student involvement a more important thing there, I do know there are plans to lower the number of people that we need in the Senate as far as amending the bylaws, and we think that's a terrible idea. Because what really needs to be done, it just so happens to be that Eva and I will be RAs next year, so we will have a lot of student input, we will have a lot of res life input. Kiva herself has her connections with the faculty and with the administration, and one of our ideas as far as organizations goes, those are student leaders that tend to be swamped already, and so they might be less willing to participate in SGA. So our plan is to send out invitations at the beginning of the year for them to nominate members from their organization to represent an SGA, and it would help fill in more. Another plan to look into, because faculty are great sources for looking at future student leaders, we are looking at asking the academic chairs to look into spotting out leaders for us and recommending that they apply for SGA, because it would be, it's less advertising on our end, it's less work, and it's getting more campus involvement and trying to spot these future leaders. So that's basically our plan, is increase involvement, increase our awareness, and make sure that we do get the 35 seats in the Senate that we can have.
This one is again for Mike. How do you want to help our candidates live up to the name Eco Youth?
That's an excellent question. Basically, anytime that there are plans for construction or making changes, making sure that we're actually implementing environmental sustainable policies in those. An example of that is, I had heard this past winter that there are plans underway to redo the roof of the Student Services Building. I went to the meeting and basically raised the objection that the new plan was not in any way green. I then authored a resolution which passed the Senate, which was part of the case that I think helped them go back to the architect and say, okay, we're going to look at increasing the amount of green on this roof, which has all the benefits of added insulation, shade, and whatnot, to make the space more usable. So being on, this goes back to what I said about students, making sure that student government is insistent that students are involved early in these processes, so that we don't have to come in at the last minute and say, well, we disagree with this design. Another example is the ongoing discussion of the multi-purpose space that is proposed, recreational area that would potentially involve removing trees or whatnot, making sure that they actually provide the promised offset, so that another area would be left to grow natural, and not just promise to do it and not do it, or not say, oh, well, it's not that important, it's only an acre or whatever, because those little things add up to big things. Also, SGA has an environmental sustainability fund, so making sure that that is implemented correctly next year. This year we went through a lot of work just to work out all those details of how it's going to work and what projects are we looking for. So making sure that that money is spent on projects that are not only sustainable but visible, in the sense that they provide that educational component, so that we don't appear to be a school that says that we are environmentally sustainable but doesn't do anything about it. And if there are any practices within SGA itself that are less sustainable, that someone comes up and says, oh, it doesn't make any sense, we could look at changing them, maybe be less, use less paper, whatever. I don't know what the specifics are, but a lot of that is not focused on us, but it's focused on the administration. It's focused on things like the construction projects. It's focused on things like, just looking for any kind of savings, any kind of ways that if there's something that's being done currently that doesn't make sense, that we can improve upon. Making sure that people know that the students care about it. What a great sound.
Yeah.
One major plan is to help expand the Environmental Affairs Committee and to make sure that they do get accurate information. But another issue is that going green is expensive, and that is something that our university cannot do on its own. And even though we're secluded from the rest of the city, we should not be afraid to appeal to the city for help when it comes to the matters. There's a lot of money to be offered for anyone who is willing to experiment with green technology, going green, or anything about that. And I know this because this is what my expository writing essay was about. A meeting with the city council actually told me that we got $3.6 million in stimulus funds, which we put towards billboards, the city of Green Bay that is, put towards billboards and flyers and pamphlets about how to be green. The university probably could have used some of that money, but as far as I know, as far as when I talked to the administration here, we did not receive any money, whether stimulus from the states or federal governments, to help us with going green. So we shouldn't be afraid to address the city, to address businesses, to reach out to the community and get input about going green.
How do you envision student government working to make the student experience at UWGB better?
Making the student experience better. Well, I know just from the people I've spoken to, not only campaigning, but every time someone joins the SGA, we usually ask them, what kinds of things they care about. We hear some of the same things over and over. The library should be open different hours, or the union should be open different hours, or there's nothing to do on the weekend, or things like that. All of those things essentially boil down to cost. Who's going to show up to that kind of thing? But, I know last night, for example, there were a couple of different events here in the union that had pretty good turnout. We already as students, we're paying for that kind of stuff, just making sure that we're doing the right kind of things. To make sure that this is a campus that people want to come to and stay at. I know that as a person who has been a student here both on campus, living in residences and off campus, there's not a lot of incentive really to come here sometimes if you don't live here. Making the university more appealing, I think, to the community too, connecting us better to the community would help improve the experience for everyone so we don't feel so isolated, so people don't feel like they have to go home on the weekend because there's nothing to do. Improving the student experience really comes down to, I think, asking the students what they want, and then seeing, if it's possible or not, and if it is possible, what we have to do to achieve it. So that really comes back to the whole issue of communication again, because, obviously I have my assumptions of what would improve the student experience, but other people might feel differently. So some of the things I mentioned are some of the things that I think would probably be helpful is just to have more of a reason for people to stay so that we don't feel like we have to flee every weekend. And also remembering that we have a significant population of students that don't live on campus, but would still like to be part of the experience, part of the campus community. People that are maybe not traditional students, people that are older, or live on their own, still want college experience. They still want a traditional college experience. They still want to be part of the community, be part of organizations. They still want to go to a physical class where they can have interactions. They don't want to just sit at home online on a computer. That's not really a college education. That's not a traditional college experience. So that's another issue that I would say that we want to address, not with an idea in mind of where it would lead to, but just address what is it exactly that we're looking for as a campus student. And I think a lot of people come here because they want more of that traditional experience. They want their personal interactions. And in the last few seconds, my running mate Chloe is here. So, yeah.
Thank you.
How do you envision student government working to make the student experience at UWGB better?
One good thing about Kiva and I being RAs next year is we do have access to student input, and we do have ways that we can implement changes. And the best way, I believe, to do that is through the RA program. The best way to persuade students that this is where they want to stay the next 4 years is through orientation. And the orientation process, to many, may not seem important, but that's where we get our points across of what we represent, what we stand for. And that's why diversity, keeping the eco-U image alive, those things are important to us, and especially with diversity. It looks terrible that we have students going back home and saying, well, Green Bay really isn't that diverse of a campus and it's very cliquey. We want to implement new ways for orientation programs to introduce freshmen to new concepts, to help them be more comfortable outside of their own spheres of influence. And SGA can help with that process by working closely with ResLife and with the staff and seeing what programs do have to be implemented. As far as weekend programs and things like that, those are expensive to do, but it's all up to the students and they're the ones who are paying for this. So it's their inputs that what they want their money to go towards is important to us.
What is your stance on environmental conditioning policies? I know environmental conditioning would be air conditioning, heating, utilities of that sort.
To be honest, I think there are things that can't be avoided because the comforts of the students is important and you can't get around it. We had students complaining in the middle of March on 70 degree days when they wouldn't adjust the air conditioning. So really that's a matter of what can the university afford to do, when can they afford to do it, as far as making an environmental issue out of it, to preserve energy and issues like that. It's something where the comfort of the student is going to be more important in that matter.
I don't think my answer would be substantially different from that. Obviously, it's both cost and environment are important things to consider. The other thing though is that I actually had, for the first time that I'm aware in my life, I had a class canceled last week because of heat. Now maybe that was just the professor overreacting, I don't know, but once it gets to the level where it's interfering with education, obviously that's unacceptable because that's the reason here is to get an education. So this is an example of where being involved early in the process so that future buildings are more sustainable, could be heated and cheaper is a good thing. Obviously, we have inherited a number of buildings that are older and we don't know about those, but yeah, you have to make it so that people are at least comfortable enough that they can, students want to add anything to that.
I guess I would just point out that it was very much an anomaly this year. So typically, I guess that it shouldn't be too much of a problem with heating and cooling in March. So I guess that would be my only points.
Ladies and gentlemen, Eva is here.
Sorry I'm late. Can we get the question repeated, or did we already answer?
Okay.
Okay.
You gave a good answer.
Okay, great.
So,
I thought we would.
so we'll